here like this. And then I get my elbow down here in the wedge of his neck, and I'm gonna look to go 5 fingers over so I can really wrap over this way and get my wrist above my knuckles like this here and keep his wrist pinned to the floor. I'm gonna go palm up underneath so I can get under. This is a little harder sometimes, and this allows me to wedge up underneath. Find my own wrist again, so double like thumbless grips here. I'm gonna turn my head away from it. What's happening over on this side may be either that I'm pinching my knee and elbow together like this, or I'm dropping this back and hooking his leg if it's available to me, so I can drop my hip heavy. Once there, I think about this as a paintbrush kind of move. So this is like the handle of the paintbrush, these are the bristles, and I'm gonna paint a stroke from here down toward his toes this way. Here, this also may be that whenever we're in this position and he goes and he pushes us up, whenever he does that, he has to plant his hand on the floor. Then I can shoot back over this way. I'm gonna push this out here. Hip comes out, shoulder comes out, hip out again, shoulder out, close the guard, keep the bend in the arm, take his hand to the back of his head here, keeping everything funneled in nice and close. Now again, Kimura is, you can...
Training with Bradley, I like to hold the armpit here and like pull them into me. And then I can drop my shoulder. I'm aiming to get my shoulder underneath his chin. But what's really important, I've got to get this elbow high. So there's several ways to get this elbow high. You can just use your left knee to bring it high, or you can sit through your right leg and then come high. And see now I've got my chest on top of his face here, and I kind of get my rib cage. And we get to this part of the bone here. It doesn't feel good, does it? It feels very nasty. So what I do from here, I want to climb both elbows high. So I can start climbing here until I can get a good hold of his armpit here. Now I kind of pull him into me. Climb this elbow high. It's just constant readjustment. See what I'm doing with my body? So I don't want my shoulder here on his jaw, on underneath his neck. So I constantly readjust until it's right underneath his neck. Now I grab his tricep. All I'm going to do now is drop my shoulder into his neck and angle myself to the left. Right there. It's a sneaky little choke. It's very much like the Von Flu choke. So,
that's nice, dude.
When Bradley does it, oh my god, times that by 100. So we're in side control. You can have this grip here, so, and you can put the chest in the face, I like to do that, or the shoulder in the jaw. So it depends what you like to do. Sometimes I do that from the left knee, or I'll sit through. Just keep the pressure on the whole time. It's just weight. I don't use any strength. So now this elbow is high. And I'll post out on my right hand, keep the pressure on, and crawl his arm high. So now both elbows are high. So if he wants to, imagine doing a bench press, you know, both elbows high. No matter how strong the guy is, I'm not going to be able to do it. So now I'm just going to readjust my body. Sometimes I use my head just to help here. And I just constantly readjust. So now I can feel my shoulders right underneath his chin. And I can grab the tricep or just angle to the left here. Oh, the hands on this side. See how I like kind of pull him into me. Get a good grip here. So I pull him into me, and then see it's already coming on. I just have to angle my hip to the left.
Tutorial. But after I get to this leg drag position, I get my knee down here like this. A common response for him to have is to make this frame so that I don't flatten him out too much. So once we get here and I'm trying to drive in, I'm gonna get that resistance, but then I'm gonna pop this arm across here. I'm gonna shoot in nice and deep off of this one. And then initially, I'm gonna probably get a gable grip with my hands, and I'm gonna try to get my head to the floor over here and try to flatten him out. I may be able to finish right from here, but if he's got a lot of shoulder mass and everything, it's gonna be a little hard. So what I'd like to try to do here is flatten him out over to this side, get my head to the floor, get my pelvis to the floor, gable grip here, squeeze my elbow inside, drop all the weight like that. If I'm still not getting it, I'll keep my head in place, keep the squeeze, and then walk my feet a little farther north here to finish out on that choke like that. And so that's gonna be our first. Finishing this one is first, gable grip your hands and use your forearm to smash that elbow tighter so the space is more narrow for you to fit around. Now this hand comes back open, I reach up, I grab my bicep, this one goes to his back, I want to make sure that I tuck my head when I'm going to roll, and I get my nose underneath his stomach so he doesn't land on my head and smash my head and create a speed bump during the roll. Once we go here, I go to roll out like this, and then the thing that I like to try to do next is I want to try to bring this leg up and touch the back of his arm so I don't have to just depend on my arms to keep him all smushed in together like this here. So I go here, I'm trying to smash that in, and then get the tap like that.
So let's look at a real basic one from the guard to the closed guard right here. That's common for the guy to put his hand in, forming your neck and frame in a street type scenario. So if the guy's pushing, I'll use my heels to get the weight off my neck, and then I'll shift his arm off the side and pull him back in tight. I'll bring my knees clasping back to my shoulders. Now, I want to shoot my hand through, and I'm going to get this grip right here. I use the gable grip, palm turned away. That way, if he goes to rip back, it makes the structure more sound. It doesn't disassemble the structure this way. So I keep the grip. Now, I want to make sure my shoulder drops below his chin, and I get below right here. I just kind of want to scoot my hip out, make sure I don't get crunched up. I keep the grip. I'm going to pull his shoulder through the carotid, and then bring my elbow back to my hip to make the choke happen. If I can't get it from right there, or if I've got enough space, I'll bring that hand up and hold the bicep. Bring that hand between our heads, and then go to execute the finish right there.
So sometimes when we get to this position in the mount, we get here like this, and if I'm underneath his head, this is great control for me here. I just have to know what options I have in this position. So somehow I want to capture this wrist here, and that may be that like I came in and I used my knee to block somehow where I was blocking here, and I capture this wrist, and I want to slingshot it back. If I just try to pull this back here and grab it, he's going to probably push his hand away from me to fight that grip here. So I'm going to first stretch it here like this. I'm going to slingshot it back, grab my own wrist. This I'm just going to set up like an Americana. So I'm going to come inside here like this. Now, the problem here is if I can't get my arm out from underneath his head, then this is probably not going to finish the Americana like this here. It's more like a pro wrestling move. It's not going to work. So we go here like this, and I'm having trouble getting out from underneath his head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to finish it and make him think I want to finish it the wrong way. So I'll slide down closer. I'm going to put his elbow up toward his nose, get my chin to the outside of the elbow. Now this is essentially locked in place. The problem is my hand is stuck too. So I release one, push this one clear, two like that, and then I gable grip my hands together, drop my head down like we mentioned before. Same kind of dismount where I cut across here like this, slide down, and then drop, sink, everything melts inside.
Go to do that to him, he's going to put his hand out to stop the sweep. Now as soon as he does that, the most important thing I do is I move my hip right to where his wrist is. And now I grab hold with my hands. Now, I
don't want to necessarily comb his hair back. I want to hide this one, the back of my hand behind the back of his neck here like this. I want to keep my chin down on top of my hands so it makes it difficult for him to peel the hands away this direction, and I squeeze, and that's it. Now, we could talk instead, I want to get up onto my side more, and now this is going to flex a little bit better here like this. I'm going to keep the same kind of connection, but I'm going to squeeze the elbows together and kind of scoop and curl like I'm kind of spooning something toward my mouth this way, and the legs are actually going to pull him in tighter to the choke so it compacts and squeezes like that. And that's what's going to happen whenever I have the arm on the inside, which again, from here I want to get underneath his head. I want to walk this arm up here and get some kind of connection this way. I would like to get my head to the outside of his arm. This might happen a lot of different ways. Maybe he was framing on me and I shoved his arm across. Maybe I walked it up and got into this position, but I want to show mainly the application rather than the entry points. So once I get this across here, I'm going to gable grip my two hands. I want to get my forehead all the way down to the connection of my hands to staple it together. And then I want to dismount. I can finish this maybe from mount, but it's a lot harder. It's easier to finish this from dismounted off to side control. When I go to dismount here, I step off. I can stay up on my knees, or I can melt my hips down to the floor here like this, squeeze, then drop. As a variation here, instead of dropping down to my hips, I can swing out this way and go into like a more of a rear naked choke style like that and finish that way as well. I can also stay on my knees and sink out this direction here to finish the arm triangle too. I have a whole video on this where I enter in by the neck and out here. So it's not front facing any longer. Now the anaconda choke actually comes from this direction here, and this is the finish on the anaconda choke like this. So it's kind of an inverted entry point to the arm triangle, and it ends in the anaconda. Similar to that is if he's on his side and I enter in for what we call the Darce choke. The Darce choke is where I enter in by the armpit, out by the back of the neck here like this, and then I get control here. I squeeze, drive my hips in, and it's another arm triangle, but this time top side perpendicular. So what I'm gonna look for here is lots of different ways we can set this up, but let's talk about the application of the triangle choke itself. It happens whenever I have Mitch's neck and arm on the inside of my legs here like this, one arm in, one arm out, which is why this is not a good position for him to play for very long whenever we're rolling. And so I wanna get fairly perpendicular to him like this. I don't wanna bite here on his back and squeeze his shoulder blade because he still has a good blood flow on this side and it's not constricting well enough to make him fall asleep. So what I wanna look to do is try to get this as constricted and compact as possible. And I would like to end this with my knee here in front of his shoulder on this side and both my knees pointing the same direction. There, and then I make the connection on that side, nice and tight.
And he undoes his legs and he sits up here to wrap a guillotine, okay? As soon as Reese goes to wrap a guillotine like that, the first thing I like to personally do is wrap my left arm over. The reason I'm doing that is to stop him having a high elbow guillotine. Just go for a Marcelo style high elbow guillotine. That. You're screwed. A guy gets like that, you better hope you can pop your head out, you got a sweaty head. So the first thing I like to do is wrap over. And then what I like to do here is I like to jump up onto my feet and cartwheel over his left leg. I'm now going to grip my hands together. I do left hand palm down, right hand palm up, and I grip my hands together here. Now tripod up and put all of my weight through my left shoulder here and squeeze, 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 squeeze. Pummel over, and I'm gonna move my head out on the mat. Now I can grab his hand and get it off my head, and now I can bully that thing. And I wanna play body weight plus 2 limbs onto 1 limb. And find an Americana or a Kimura. Again, finishing like this or like this. I like both ways, okay?
Between the anaconda and the darce. So the darce locks in at the neck, the anaconda locks in under the armpit. Okay, and the main position you're gonna get the anaconda from is right here at the top turtle. Lock it in, everything's tight. Your head has to drop on top of your own arms. If I leave it here, he's gonna crush my face when we roll. So my head drops here. The 3 motions are actually the same. I make a muscle, I squeeze my elbows together, and I hug him into my chest. And of course I'll walk and I'll lock over his arm if I need to. The darce is typically done from side control, although it can be done from the turtle. But from side control, he gets an underhook. My arm comes under his armpit, crosses at his neck. Sprawl, and I like to lean towards the head. And it's the same motions. Make a muscle, squeeze my elbows together, and hug him to me. That's how to do the darce choke. Anytime your opponent has an underhook on you, you can do a darce to him. And it's typically from side control top, or if I'm in top half guard. Either way, I could get the darce. He gets the underhook. Once there's that space, my arm goes underneath his armpit and all the way to his neck. I grab my bicep. I don't want his head to be up here because then I can't reach. So look, I use my elbow and I push his head down. I lock it. Hand never on the bottom. Bring your hand all the way up as high as it can go. Then grab his back. Next step is to sprawl. Put all of your weight on your shoulder, on his shoulder, on my shoulder, on his shoulder. Drop that weight. And then what I like to do, instead of just squeezing and ripping him, I like to lean towards his head. When I lean, all my weight goes on his shoulder, which goes into his neck. And I haven't even squeezed anything yet and he's tapping. So I do the lean, then I do the squeeze and hug. We get a nice tap. So here's what it looks like.
Is I take this thumb and I'm gonna slide it down, and then from here I'm gonna switch my hip and immediately go for this guillotine here, okay? When I go for the guillotine, you can go arm in, arm out, doesn't matter, that's your choice. But what I try to do is throw this leg over top so he cannot hop over. Because if I get right here, if he hops over,
boom, I'm gonna get von Flucho. At the very least, he's gonna escape.
Let's go palm to palm, keep my forearm against his tricep, and then wedge his arm and his neck together nice and tight that way. Now, if I feel like I can get my arm deeper, maybe I can go back to that anaconda, or I can leave my arm right here, take this bottom hand, switch it over and grab my wrist, step my left leg back way back here by his hips and his butt, and then insert my knee right here. Once I do that, I bite over the back, squeeze, and that gets a nice arm in guillotine choke like that.